What's up, guys? Welcome back to Blood, Sweat, and Gear with coaches Skip Hill, Andrew Berry, myself, Scott McNally, and we are brought to you by Patreon. Thank you guys very much for your support over at Patreon. We're also brought to you by TrueNutrition.com. Use our code THINK over there for high-quality third-party tested supplements. You can get the Team Skip protein blend, which is delicious. It's definitely like thicker than your standard whey isolate, though they do have whey isolate and everything else over there. Like I said, use our code THINK. SupplementSource.ca for our Canadians. You guys can get great deals if you're in Canada over at Supplement Source. Tell them that we said hi in the comments on your order. And outside of that, guys, I think that cleans house. We are ready to go. Skip, remind me today, we got to talk about your new podcast that you have on your own channel with Dr. Marv. So don't let me forget about that. Word of the day. We got to remember the word of the day, too. We kind of fell off on that.
I know.
But to lead us off, man, this is a fun question that Andrew got off of gathering questions from Instagram. This is going to be a fun one, right up our alley, and I think that our people on YouTube are going to like this too. If you could only use one injectable steroid, one oral, and one peptide, what would they be? That's such a great question for
YouTube. It is a good one. I wonder if we're going to have differences. Okay.
Right.
I have a feeling we're all going to say the same thing for two of the items.
I have questions.
Okay.
Though. So
okay.
Does this have to be test, or are we going to assume that test is already there? Because, like, I'm not going to not take test.
Let's assume test is there.
Yeah, because it makes it way more exciting. Because I think we'd all say, well, obviously testosterone. We're not going to go through this thing without testosterone.
Right.
All right. So test is a given. All right. Let's say this. You can only use enough testosterone that puts you at like 950 nanograms. So like high normal.
Okay.
So then you're relying on the other compounds. So you know what I'm saying? Like we're high normal in it. Yeah. Does that make sense?
I got you. I'm good with that.
Okay. Then I got to think a little harder for a second then. Actually, not that hard.
It's injectable, oral, and peptide.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right.
That's going to make it tough for you, Skip, because I know you like growth, but I like insulin. But.
Exactly. Melanotan can't go.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm reminded of that all the time.
Yeah, but you have like a storage mechanism of melanotan at this point in your body. So I think you could go without it, right?
I've gone without it for a month and I'm still dark.
That's what I mean. Yeah. I'm going to go for my peptide growth hormone. Okay. Obviously, it was either going to be insulin or growth hormone. I think between the two, growth hormone is going to lead more advantageous growth, at least the look, right? You take 8 to 10 units of GH and you're dramatically changing your physique in a couple weeks. Okay. For oral, I'm going to go with Anavar. And I know in years past, I probably would have said something like Winstrol or Anadrol, but I've really been enjoying maybe the Anavar I was getting in years past was fake, because it's not that I wrote it off, but I was just kind of like not impressed as much as I should have been with it. And lately I've been very impressed with it. So I'm going to my orals, Anavar, and my injectable, I'm going to say Trenbolone. I think it's the funnest drug, at least. And I do think through some experiments, you could use it at a very low dose and get some crazy results, as low as 10, 15, 20 milligrams a day. I do think so. I think the days of running 700 milligrams a week or even more, I think those days are gone. I mean, I've got contest prep guys that are using 20 milligrams a day, or less even. We might start with 10 and we'll bump it up to 20. So yeah, GH, Tren, Anavar.
Okay, so here two of those three I would have picked. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to choose those two. So I'm going to give my three, because I agree completely with I'm an Anavar guy. But I will tell you this. I'm going to start with the oral, and I'm going to say Anadrol. And not because I like it better than Anavar, but it does have components to it that I do like when I'm really lean, there is a measurable change visually, where visually I don't get much of a change from Anavar, but I get a lot of strength and that contractile force. Like the muscles contract so hard that they feel like they're just going to rip off. I've said that a million times before, but doing dumbbell presses, it just feels like it's just going to come away from your sternum. That Superman thing. Anyway, so I'm going to go with Anadrol for that. And GH is a no-brainer, but I'm gonna go with another. I'm gonna go with Reta, and I'm gonna go with Reta because.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I am. I just have not been as impressed with a peptide. I maybe ever, I don't know. It's just on a different level, and I'm excited because I'm going to be using it in prep this year, and it's finally going to get to the stage. So it's going to be very, very interesting. And for someone who's done this for a very, very long time, to use something and be excited about it, like what's going to happen, it's such a huge learning process too. Because there are people who told me, "Oh, that might not be a good idea. People aren't using it for prep." Yeah, they are. They're just not telling you. They're just not telling you. They're kind of keeping it under wraps, which, quite frankly, I don't knock that too much. When you have something that works like that, we give away a lot of free information. Maybe there are smarter people out there who don't give away that information. They have to actually come to you and pay you for that information and work with you. The injectable, I'm going to say this. I'm going to go with DHB. Tess and DHB. I really like DHB.
I think that's not a bad idea.
I do like it. I do like it.
Yeah, you could use that.
I'm not running any DHB in this prep either.
You could use that in off season. You could use it in a cut. Yeah. You could use it in either. That's kind of where I liked Andrew's answer with the Anavar, because I'm thinking like, well, I guess my thoughts would change. The way I'm looking at this, like right now, I'm running a few things and none of them are really gear. So I'm thinking like none of it really, honestly, it doesn't interest me for my goals right now. So I'm thinking like, okay, a client, if I've got a client, I'd have a different set for off season than I would, my 3 for off season than for prep. But I think the question is, no, you can only have 3.
For life.
Yeah.
For life.
Okay. So Anavar, if say like I have a client and I'm like, okay, we can only pick 3 things, bud. You're stuck with it. Don't ask me why. It's just the rules.
And plus you have to understand.
Anavar would work. VAR would work good for that.
I keep doing it. I'm sorry.
You can what?
No, I'm trying to get a stupid joke in it. These days you can liver tissue. It regenerates. Obviously, Anadrol. I would not want to sit on Anadrol for a lifetime. So
yeah, no, you cycle it in and out. Maybe you run a good leg day this week or something. Yeah, exactly. And you've got it. You're allowed. Andrew's not allowed. On the other hand.
And I'm probably closer to death than he is, but anyway.
I like the Anavar. I think that's a good one. I'm gonna say, oh gosh, I like EQ. I feel like, but you know what though? Okay, how about this? If I'm gonna borrow Andrew's and go with Anavar, but I'm also gonna go with EQ. We can always pull the EQ back in contest time if he's getting too soft looking from it, which usually you can often run EQ all the way into the show if you're lean enough. It's not a problem.
A lot of people do.
Yeah, you got that. You've got your Anavar. That's going to work out well. And I'm going to go with growth. I still can't, as far as somebody who's trying to grow muscle, stay lean, and lose fat, I got to go with growth hormone. So
this gives me a good idea.
What's that? What's that?
The clients might not love it, but if like coaches get together as friends and they say, okay, we can only use 3 compounds, 1 peptide, 1 oral, one injectable, all prep. And gentleman's bet, whoever's athlete does better or something to that effect.
Yeah.
I thought that might be a fun game to play. Maybe if it's someone that's listening to this and they're like, hey, I want to be a client like that where they're only going to use 3 compounds with me, and maybe Skip and Scott can find a client that they only want to use 3 compounds, and let's see who can look better just, with our choices that we're picking here.
Yeah.
That would have been an experiment back in the day. Remember, I used to do those experiments where I would get 8 to 10 people and charge them like a fraction of what it would normally cost for a 12-week program. And I would then discuss the results on Intense Muscle afterwards. That would have fit that mold great. I missed that part of IM as well, because that happened quite a bit. Yeah. Learned a lot. I think a lot of other people did too.
I think the experiments you were doing then were great because, and I think the biggest one was, you coming up with skip loading, I mean, before that, I had never heard of anyone talking about bolus, refeeding, whatever you want to call it, of calories, carbs specifically to help stimulate the metabolism. So honestly, you can almost say you're kind of like the godfather of refeed, skip loading, cheat meals, whatever you want to call it. Just
you broke up a little bit.
I would call him that.
Could you repeat that again?
I would agree. I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, and I know a lot of the older coaches who were on the boards from the early 2000s to 2010, they would definitely agree with me because previously dieting was just you diet, and you diet harder and you diet harder and do more cardio until you get in shape. And now I think through I think you stumbled upon it with experiments, if I'm not wrong, right?
Oh yeah, no question. It started with the shit loading when I was working with and discussing with Zilla, and I thought, I think this could be a little bit better if it were tweaked, and I played around with it, and then that was like 20 some years ago. It's been evolving for a long time, which may be the reason that there is a lot of misunderstood components of skip loading, especially if you used it or tried to use it and didn't work with me, 20 years ago. So I will have my skip loading video out this weekend with all updated, very detailed, digging into the minutia so that it's understood.
That's a good
Here's
idea.
the thing. I've been around for a long time, and I talked about skip loading back in the day ad nauseum, to the point where I thought people just don't want to hear about this anymore. Like quit talking about skip loading. So then we fast forward, and I just assume everybody knows about it. Well, it's 20 years ago. And then there's some misinformation or misunderstanding about the concept, and then I'm reminded, man, I gotta get this out. And that's on me. Honestly,
I think even just taking it further, just the idea of using bolus calorie refeeds or calorie stimuluses to increase your metabolism. That was a foreign concept, I think, before that time period. Yeah. So I think and every coach today, every single coach today uses some form, whether it's a cheat meal, a carbohydrate refeed, fat loading them for a day, whatever you want to call it. They've realized we need to do something to stimulate the metabolism, requiring increase in calories for a certain period of time and before we go back to the diet. So I think you definitely deserve credit for that, for sure.
I appreciate that. It was a very antiquated method of just literally kill yourself. Borderline. So remember, preps used to be very, very short too. Yep. I didn't change that. But we're talking 10, 12 weeks. I mean, even the pros, Gaspari and guys back then in the late 80s, they were doing very, very short preps. So a lot has changed in 20 years.
I mean, even how, we set up diets, which I think we have a lead-in question on that, right, Scott?
Yes, sir, we do. Yeah, somebody asked us, and I think, Andrew, you said we did talk about that not super long ago, but it wasn't kind of a big main topic, I guess. I guess we kind of jumped into it. Thank you for tuning in, and if we are providing value to you today, let me encourage you to subscribe and hit the bell. We have several bodybuilding podcasts that come out each week. What was it? Here it is. Hey, Scott, we've never done a deep dive into diet. I'd like to ask your thoughts on this. What would be the ideal diet for someone looking to gain muscle while staying lean? Would you recommend prioritizing carbs and or fats? And if so, why? How large should the portions be? And is it okay to eat after 10 p.m.? I also watched a video of Jay Cutler claiming he never focused on calories, only protein. Do you guys think that this would be a good approach?
First, I want to say I don't think Jay Cutler just focused on protein. I think he ate what Chris Aceto wrote out on his plan, and maybe he just didn't really think about the carbs that much, but he was a very detail-oriented guy. And if you watch any of his videos and how he attacked, I remember Chris Aceto talking about, just the level of detail he puts into cleaning his kitchen after making a meal. And by the time he's done cleaning the kitchen after eating, it's time to start making the next meal. And he would do that like 8 times a day. And that was his whole day other than training. But
I wonder if in off season though, he just was like piling it in, like how much, because remember that was like the force feeding days, right?
Sure.
Could it be maybe he didn't count. He just kept pushing it up, but he tracked the protein.
You guys know that like whether you're counting or not, it ends up being an average within, let's say 15% day to day of being the same amount of calories, right? Yeah. Like it's, okay, so I'm out on the road and I didn't bring my chicken and rice, but I'm stopping at Chipotle and you're having a beef and rice bowl or whatever. Okay, maybe I'm getting 12 or 15% extra calories in that meal. And then the next day I'm home all day, so I'm just eating straight chicken and rice or whatever my planned meals are. And so I'm down a little bit, but the average overall is staying about the same. In his case, he was eating as much as he possibly could, upwards of 800, 900, 1,000 grams of carbohydrates a day. And I would imagine his protein stayed pretty similar throughout off season and prep. I think that's the one macronutrient that stays pretty constant for athletes from off season dieting, whatever you want to call it. It's pretty constant year round. Wouldn't you guys agree?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think part of that question too was how to start the phase, whether to be aggressive or whether to kind of roll into it slow.
That was the follow-up question. That was another question, not here. Yeah, that was the next one we were going to do.
Yeah. Tell us how you start up someone with a diet skip. When a client comes to you, tell us your process.
Well, there are two different scenarios. If I think that their calories are already high enough, then I will start to cut from there. But there are some clients that will come to you and you're just not sure. And the last thing I want to do going
You're
into
going to start. Wait, sorry, I just want to
we're
interrupt you.
start cutting, right?
No, this is an off season. We're trying to grow muscle.
Okay, thanks for clarifying because I was about to go down that.
I thought, yeah, good. Glad I caught you.
I misunderstood. Okay, and this is a parallel that I have with Justin. Now that I've started to work with Justin, it's really cool because we're so on the same page. And for someone who has never worked with anybody before ever in his entire life, it's reinforcing to me because I'm like, I just love the moves that I want to make or that I would make. We're on the same page. He just basically says the same thing. And when he makes a move, I think, that's what that's going to do. So we have parallels in this in this particular area. Increasing, anytime you can increase calories and maintain your condition, that's a bonus. You want what I call the ceiling. You got ceiling in the basement. Okay, the higher your calories and the lower your caloric intake, and you can manage. Not only feed growth, but manage condition, the better, because the higher that ceiling is coming into a cut phase, the more options you have to dig into body fat to either lower calories, to increase caloric expenditure with cardio, things like that. You also have a lot of energy, obviously, to train without being overly depleted or kind of pushing yourself into an overtrained state. Which is the last place you want to be. We all know that when you come into a cut phase that you're going to have recovery issues. So in the off season, the higher the calories, the better, but you still want to maintain a respectable level of conditioning. I think the times have changed dramatically in bodybuilding. I think you guys would agree with off season where it's not just kitchen sink. It's not eat everything you can eat. We have come to realize, thankfully, that you can make really good gains, arguably your best gains, and stay insulin sensitive without just throwing calories. And so when those increases start with a client that's come to me in the off season, I want to step those calories up slowly in a very methodical or incremental way so that we can add, maybe it's only 200 calories, maybe it's 350. Maybe the calories are just too low to begin with, and you're filling out an extra 400 or 500 calories a week for the first few weeks. But that isn't going to go on forever, and you need to maintain the insulin sensitivity. Insulin sensitivity is king, whether you're gaining in the off season or whether you're cutting in a prep. So everything needs to revolve around remaining insulin sensitive. Slow, incremental, methodical changes to take those calories up. Anytime you can take them up and maintain condition, the better. Even if your weight isn't going up, but you're growing. You can grow. I think this is an important note, and then I can hand it off. You can grow without your body weight, your scale weight going up.
Yeah.
And if you're improving in the gym within bodybuilding rep ranges, you are growing. You have to be. There's just really no way around. Are you growing enough? Could you grow a little more? That's where the question comes in as far as how many calories you want to add and how frequently. But maintain the condition as best you can. That will help to maintain insulin sensitivity as well.
Yeah. Here, let me throw it out this way would be my thought. And I agree with you 100% on that, Skip. I would say this, we've got a couple different people that come to you. One person is already on a diet, and another person is they're not doing anything. They may be eating 3 times a day or something. And if you take a guy who's only eating 2 or 3 times a day, I might not put you on what would be the absolute perfect diet, because I kind of feel like the perfect diet is a diet that you can follow. So here's what I'd probably do. If, let's say the guy is 180 pounds, and he's eating 2.5 times a day, and sometimes that's like junk food, for dinner. I might have him eat 3 solid food meals a day with maybe about 50 grams of protein, and then a couple of shakes with 50 grams of protein, in each shake. So now you're getting like 250 grams of protein. Then we'll put some carbs in, maybe carbs in for 3 or 4 of those meals, a little bit of fats in too, but I'll probably not go super high with the fats at first. And I'm assuming, like I said, this guy's, 185 pounds. And then from there, I'm going to see what happens. Because it's a kind of a generic diet at this point. I don't know what is going to happen with his body. He might end up saying oh man, I'm really full with these foods. He might even have trouble sticking with it at first. But let's say we get into a groove with it, and it's only 3 meals. That's the way I look at it. It's 3 meals and 2 shakes. So like you can work that in. You can make that work, right? And we'll watch how your body responds. You know, we might not get anything. You might say like, oh man, I'm super full all the time with these meals. And I'm like, well, we're not really doing a lot. We're doing like maybe 150 grams of carbs, 200 grams of carbs, but he's not used to eating this much. I might not do anything with it. I might just wait. And with time, I know that his hunger is going to start to get higher. And ultimately, what I want to see as a coach, to me, I want to actually see him tightening up first. Like, I don't want to go into it and just like, you're 185 today, and then we start the diet, and then you're 187, and then you're, 192 and 197. Sure. Like, I want to see what your baseline is. And I don't really believe in the, like, let's calculate what your calories are on paper and what your body can handle. I just think that everybody has their own ability to process food, and it's going to be really individual. But over time, I think that we could change that. We get you used to eating, and over time, you'll start anticipating those meals. And I feel like we'll start, what I've seen is people will start processing clean food better. And then after we see kind of like what your baseline is and what you can handle, as we can build up, we'll build up. And I'll try to keep the carbs complex, sweet potato, red skin potato, maybe we'll even use some pasta to change it up, oatmeal, maybe some cream of rice at some point, rice, things like that, white rice, jasmine rice. I usually stay away from brown rice. And then have veggies in there. I'll try to stick with foods like that at first until we get the carbs so high that you can't handle more. And then we might start adding in the faster acting carbs. Plus, like, fruits are really great too. But I think one of the mistakes I see people make, or I consider it a mistake, is out the gate, they're getting in maybe, we'll say 250 carbs, and 100 and half of them are from Pop-Tarts. Like, I want to make sure that we're on a solid foundation of good, clean carbs first. And honestly, that's basically how I would write a diet to start for somebody that maybe didn't have a 5 meal a day strict plan to begin with, and we're just trying to figure out what they're doing. And this guy's about 185 pounds. That'd be my thought. I don't know. Okay. Well, I mean, tell me, critique me, guys. Okay.
Yeah, I don't see any.
If it works, you can't knock it. You know what I mean?
And you're talking about someone with 3 meals, so who's eating 3 meals. So that makes my first question was, what is the condition? Is this kind of a skinny fat, for lack of a less PC word, type of guy, or is this someone with a fast metabolism, who can rip through? But you're going to find that out as soon as you put them on the diet, because the hunger, if all of a sudden they're hungry, then that's gonna, that's a pretty big sign there that metabolism and digestion is actually more efficient and getting more optimal, and you can start feeding calories out.
Yeah. And sometimes that beforehand, just looking at somebody and knowing, you know what I mean? But they're probably eating more to begin with. You take into consideration what they were doing before, right? Absolutely. If they're eating a lot, then it's like, but sometimes it's a headache when they're eating fast food for 3 meals a day, and it's like real high calorie. I don't know. Anyway.
Well, at least the calories are up. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'll tell you this. I'd rather have somebody come to me eating a bunch of junk throughout the day than eating 1 meal a day.
True.
And going, oh, yeah, and I don't want to overeat. I'm just eating. And it's like, that's not great. Because then we have to, what I call, stage your metabolism. And it takes longer to optimize digestion. But I will say, most people will see after they change their diet, a week is a longer time than you think. They'll be cramming the food down, be like, oh, I can barely get my meals down. And 5-6 days later, like, oh my gosh. Like, I'm a little bit hungry after these meals now.
Yeah.
It can, for most people, that digestion will optimize much quicker than they think it will.
And let me add one more thing in, I'll say this, and I tell everybody this who is in a situation where they're not eating consistently, that I heard at some point, and I don't know where I heard this, but I latched onto it. You can tell me I'm wrong, I'm still going to believe it's true, that it takes 3 weeks to create a habit. That if you can do something for 3 weeks, you're going to work it into your system. I've latched onto that, and I believe it myself. So I tell people that, hey, if you stick with this, it might be hard. It takes a lot of additional psychic energy. You have to prepare your food ahead, which you might not have been doing before. But if you stick with it, in about 3 weeks, it's going to become easier, psychically less, energy to stick with it.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. One thing I'll add, first off, I want to address Sharp Home Solutions had a question about, wait, you mean we don't give out cookie cutter plans and tell them to trust the process? So first, I actually do want to address that, because when you get someone, and my questionnaire is like 32 questions on it. So I want to gather as much information as I can so I can build the most detailed plan. But sometimes people are kind of lazy when they're filling those things out, or they think that you just have some master plan and you'll be able to look at them and put their height and weight in some magical calculator and figure it out, right?
Yeah.
So in that case, like, I'll be honest, I just copy and paste another plan I've already written and I tweak it a little bit and I send it out. Because the important thing is not the initial plan you send, it's the changes you make based off the information you're giving with the check-ins, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's feasibly, you could reasonably assume within some variation that like two guys that are 200 pounds that have a similar job that weigh about the same, they're going to require roughly the same amount of calories, roughly the same amount of protein, whatever, So you can make some reasonable assumptions, but it's always the coaching tweaks you make as you go. You know what I mean? Like if I send someone a plan and it's somehow, let's just say 1,000 calories under what their normal basal metabolic rate is needing, I'm going to know within that first week, oh shoot, you dropped 4.5 pounds. Like we need to make some changes, right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to point that out because sometimes like, oh, this looks like a cookie cutter plan. And it's like, well, yeah, you didn't give me a lot of information to start with, so I had to send you something, and now I'm going to observe and make changes as we go. It's not a laziness thing.
They were just doing something that was so far off that you can't, because sometimes you could take a diet and you can, tweak what they're already doing. Because I'll do that too. If somebody's already got a fixed plan, that makes it easier on them and me because I don't have to try to guess what you're going to be able to do, right? You're already doing this. We can just start adjusting from there.
You already know the person's going to be a great client when you get their questionnaire back and it is almost over detailed with exactly how they're doing things because you're like, okay, this guy pays attention to or girl pays attention to detail. And when I make a request or a change, they're going to follow that immediately. And I'm going to be able to see what that change is doing. So it's appreciated when clients almost give too much information. And we're not talking about writing a book or a pen pal relationship. We're just talking about the pertinent information regarding the diet, training, etc. The other thing I want to mention is, because Scott, you pointed out like some of these guys are coming and they're only eating like 250 grams of carbs a day or whatever it might be. And to me, that might reflect that your training might not be that hard enough, or you might not be doing enough in the gym, because anyone knows if you're training hard 4 to 5 days a week, it's pretty hard to keep your calories down low without requiring more and more and more. So that would be a sign for me to be like, let me see what your training looks like. I want to see some videos. I want to see, what your top sets look like, what your volume is. I really want to dive into that along with the nutrition. And then the last thing I want to say, because we're talking about, how to scale the diet up. And I mentioned this on a previous podcast. I'm big on cycling calories, and not just like within the week. I'm talking more like we'll do like 2 weeks in what I would consider more of a surplus. And then we'll go back to a previous tab. I use a spreadsheet program. We go back to a previous diet that might be 5 to 10% lower in calories. And I kind of consider that like a leaning up insulin sensitivity week kind of thing. And it's kind of and it doesn't have to be a 2-1. It might be a 4-1. It might be a 6-1. It might be a 1-1, depending on the person. But the whole point is that overall, we're trying to scale the calories up, but sometimes it's not detrimental to pull calories back for a week to 10 days to kind of reset, clear digestion, and get things moving again.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
I think what we're all three saying is putting a plan together is very nuanced. It's not just like you were saying, you went off of that, him saying about a cookie cutter diet. I've been offered, a few $100. Yeah, just give me a regular diet so I can follow. Yeah. And I won't do it. And I miss out on that because it's very easy. I'll just spit you out a diet and then be like, good luck with it. Thanks for $300. That's just not going to get you anywhere. And I don't think it's something that I don't want to deal with.
So we used to do this on Mountain Dog Diet, where people would buy like a one-time training or one-time diet plan. And this is actually one of the first things I did for John was developed a whole set of like almost like chutes and ladders, like strategy of like, okay, if you hit this point, like you're not gaining weight, do this, like add 10% of calories. Specifically, let's try putting them around the post-workout window first, or pre-workout window, something around the intra-workout, peri-workout zone. And then like, okay, you're still stalling out. Okay, let's add a little bit more to your meal one. So there was a lot of strategies that like a kind of like a cheat sheet that came with the one-time plan. So that I think, because of what you're saying, Skip, you're like, you're not going to get a lot out of this if I just send you a one-time diet snapshot in time. Like that might work for 5 days, but then, that's where the coaching comes in. But I think the cheat sheet does help with people who do maybe they can't afford a long-time coach, or they just don't want. They want to kind of learn on their own. But you give them a cheat sheet to kind of help them out with making these decisions: when to increase protein, what to do with digestion if you run into this. And it was really helpful. We sold a lot of those plans.
Nice, yeah, and that would make sense, because there are then options as they move forward, and they either get stuck, it's not enough calories, it's too many calories, things like that. So that's a good call, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, let's move forward. We had another question, and I can't find it offhand, so I don't remember how it was exactly worded, but it was along the lines of, when starting a fat loss diet, should you get in and just hit it hard out the gate, or should you ease into it?
Depends on who it is. Let's say you got let's say a guy, super heavyweight, who's going to compete at like 235 pounds, and he's 251 and already has abs, glute lines, like he's all that kind of hang on fat is already gone. Like, you're already seeing rounded shoulders, you're seeing a nice, a V taper. For him, in that case, like, it's like, nah, we're going to take a nice slow approach, and you're probably going to be still having refeeds right out of the gate. We're probably doing more of the same. We're just pulling a little bit, maybe 10 or 15%, and we may or may not be adding cardio and stims and whatnot. Might be a long time till we get there, because you did such a good job staying in condition, right? Whereas you get that same super heavyweight bodybuilder who comes to you at 280, and he's going to be competitive around the 232, 233 when he's in shape. Well, he's got 50 pounds to lose, and you've got, let's say, 22 weeks to do it. You better believe that I'm going to gas you for the first 4 weeks, and we're going to hit it hard. We're going to use stims. We're going to pull your calorie, because I want to see some measurable progress. I want to see 10 pounds down in like that first 3 weeks at least, just to give like a concrete example scenario. So I would say the fatter you are, I think you do probably got to hit it harder, unless you're planning to diet 40 weeks. That if you're doing 40-week diet, because I do have some people where you got to do that. I had a woman that we started her at 46 weeks out, and it wasn't because she was overly like crazy out of shape, but I just knew her, and I knew how hard it was for her to get in shape, and I also knew her proclivity to want to eat food. So I kind of had to like do a longer, slower approach with her. So it just depends on the scenario, depends on the conditioning of the person, and those two factors.
Yeah, what does that diet look like coming in? Have you been working with that client in the off season, and then you're transitioning into a prep phase, which is one of the reasons that I offer a discount to clients if they work with me in the off season and for a prep phase. It makes my job so much easier. It makes it easier on them. I already know how you're going to respond, and I don't have to put as much work and time into getting that prep going, because I already know how you respond to a lot of different variables. The other thing that I think is important that you guys didn't mention, and you may agree or disagree, but that I wanted to mention was, if someone is just starting a cycle as they come into a cut phase, I'm going to want to and try to at least maintain calories at the start to feed that cycle for at least a few weeks. Sometimes I'll increase the calories even if we're going into a cycle or going into a prep phase if that cycle has started too. It just depends on the person. I'm the type of person, and I don't have great genetics or great recovery for that matter, but if I start a cycle, and especially when I start on GH, I'm going to get leaner and start to recomp even as my weight has gone up. I'm a couple weeks in now where I'm up 9 pounds from starting a cycle, and I'm leaner. I'm not shredded, and I'm not anywhere near getting on stage. But to see those changes in condition when you start to cycle is, you want to feed it if you can. And let me point out something that I think gets missed sometimes. Actually, I think it gets missed a lot. If you have the same amount, and I want to explain this as best I can. You have the same amount of body fat at 250 pounds before you start a cycle, and you jump to 210 or 212. You have the same amount of body fat, you're going to look leaner. You are leaner by a percentage standpoint, even though your body fat has not changed, because you're carrying more muscle. Okay. So, and I think it's important. People, they can miss out on that. They can it's missing the forest for the trees or whatever that cliche is. So if you can feed the cycle, I think it's important. And that at least for those first few weeks, and just because the scale isn't coming down does not mean that you're not getting leaner. And quite frankly, do we really want the scale to come down? we just care about getting leaner. You may want it coming down if you have to make a cutoff, but we can get to that over the next 16, 18, 20 weeks if we have to get you under the cutoff. If you're that far over the cutoff, maybe you shouldn't be making that cutoff.
If it's somebody that I've never worked with, I think that if it was somebody who was just coming to me, they're like, hey, I want to work with you and do a cut. In that scenario, so if I'm working with the person already, then I might start the gear with the cut. If I never met the person before, I want to first get the diet working first before I add the gear in, because I want to see, personally, I do want to see the scale move. I want to know, like, okay, we got you on track. We are able to control this thing. I can see that we're making progress. And then after I'm comfortable with that, it might only be 2 weeks in, then I'm okay with then starting the gear, because absolutely, I'm with you 100%. But it's like, if I don't know you, then I'm going to have to only rely on the pictures. I want to see more than just that, just at the start. Ultimately, once you add the gear in, I always say that then all bets are off on what's going to happen. And most likely you're going to hold, if not even possibly even gain, depending on what you're doing before, right?
And that right there proves we have 3 coaches sitting here who are very experienced, and we're still not going to do everything the same way. We have our own methods that we're used to, that we're familiar with, and that's how we do it.
Yeah, it's just, and that's the thing. It's like, I'm like, if that works for you, cool, but I wouldn't be comfortable with it. I want to see, I want to see the movement. I want to see you get a little bit depleted first, whereas the gear might actually kind of keep you fuller than I would have wanted to, just to see what is your body going to do, and then from there, I'm comfortable with.
To add to that, I think that's where good coaching comes into play, to be able to know this background information. Okay, we added X, Y, and Z compounds in. They're down 2 pounds. But they look full, like being able to put all those variables and see with the pictures and the changes from week to week to know, okay, we're either on the right path or we're not on the right path. You know what I mean? Like, because what you're saying, Scott, is like, well, I want him to get flatter, but he's not necessarily getting flatter because we just added 2 different compounds 2 weeks ago. So they're definitely full blood right now. So, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like being able to, I guess, keep that background information just kind of buzzing and running in your mind as you're looking at those pictures. I think that's the key thing. It's having a trained eye. It's honestly like a lot of younger coaches, I think, would miss out and just look at the scale, right? They just look at the scale weight and really just go by that versus all that conglomeration of information that we're talking about.
My first contest prep, when we added, I think it was when we added Tren in. No, it wasn't, because it was earlier than that. But I remember I was middleweight. And I hit 189, and the scale didn't move for 8 weeks. And it was my first prep. And thankfully, I was working with a guy that I trained with at the gym, and he was like, just shut up, smacked me upside the head. Shut up, you're looking better. And it's like, oh, I guess I am.
Yeah.
But I was sweating that one. If you're in the market for protein powder, check out TrueNutrition.com. They literally have every protein powder under the sun. I go with their cold filtered whey isolate or their Team Skip blend. I prefer the chocolate peanut butter cup, but there's a few flavors that I like. Let me know if you have any questions about that. Victoria, my wife, she gets the pea protein isolate. It's rare to find a pea isolate. Most of them are concentrate, so the isolate is super low in carbs. Regardless of your diet, they will have a protein powder for you, and you get to flavor it how you want and buy it by how many pounds you want. So check them out, TrueNutrition.com. They're the first company that ever supported our podcasting, so we support them. You can support us by shopping with True Nutrition and using our code THINK. Real quick update, Andrew, somebody wanted to ask us about SLU and how that's going. I'll see if I can find the actual question. But yeah, tell me about where you're at with your SLU update.
Well, it's going so well that I'm actually recommending it to the majority of clients right now.
Okay.
Off-season prep, whatever. You know what I mean? Because I think I have a good body of evidence from myself, Rachel, and the clients that I started out using it when I started using it around the same time, and just seeing what's going on. There was a streak where she was dropping 0.3 every day, every single day for a while, just getting tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. She's in prep right now, without many change. I don't think there were any food changes. Cardio maybe got bumped up a little bit, but there was no other stims or peds added in or anything like that. So I'm sold on it. I would like to see more research on it on human subjects versus just the rats that we've seen. I think there's only about 4 or 6 studies out right now. But in terms of myself, I was using it while I was pushing food up, and now I'm kind of pulling food back down, trying to get a little bit tighter again. And I'm sold on it. It's working, and I also should add like better mental clarity. I'm noticing
Yes.
I'm getting like most of my work done before I go to the gym at 11:30, when normally I'd get back and I'd still have like 2 hours of check-ins to do. I only have like 30, 40 minutes, and then I'm able to work on other projects a little bit faster. So I think the mental acuity piece is definitely key.
I agree 100%. So my situation, I'm under 200 pounds now. I'm like 197. I was at 215 when I started dieting at the beginning of the year. When I started the SLU, I had gotten down to 212, and then I just held and kept getting leaner without the scale moving. But then I really started cranking the diet. And honestly, I know I have about probably 10 more pounds of fat to lose before I actually would feel comfortable showing check-in pictures. But I'm doing the best I have done since I caught the long bug. And I do believe that it is part of it. My cardio endurance is getting good. Like I've used the concept rower that we have now. I couldn't have done that consistently and really pushed. Just walking on the treadmill, I'm at like a 4.5 incline with as fast as I can walk. So almost 4 miles an hour. And I can sustain that now. Like, man, before I was at like a level 3 with 3 miles an hour, and that was my top end. So I can push that up. I can get my heart rate up, and it's good, man. My cardio is literally the best it's been now since I had gotten sick. So I'm really just trying to focus on keeping that going, man. And I'm dieting hard. Yesterday I did no carbs. Today I added some more carbs back in because I could tell I really flattened out and I wanted to train today. So I couldn't ask for more. I'm very happy with it. And I still haven't, I am going up now. So I was just at 400 micrograms per day, 200 a.m., 200 maybe, so 7 a.m. and maybe 2 p.m. Now I'm at 250 and 250. So just a slight increase. Were you using the injectable?
No, I talked to Keith at Parabolic Peptides I was going to make my own. He was going to send me some powder, and I was going to make my own. But then I from listening, I think to maybe Dean and maybe some of the other guys that I talked to previously that were just doing the oral, I'm like, why do I need another thing to inject in my body? Like typically I think injectable is the way to go. It's getting it right into the bloodstream. But everyone was having so much success with the oral that I just said, I'll get some of the oral stuff, and I'm sticking with that for now.
Yeah.
My dosing is I'm doing I was doing 200 mics 3 times a day, and then I bumped it up to like 300, 200, 300. And in terms of like timing, I'm trying to take it in as much of a fasted state as possible, or as close to in between meals as I can to, I don't remember where I heard this from.
Speaking of which.
Oh, you guys. Yeah. Someone had told me, that one of the smart guys they know said to take it fasted. And now, so I haven't done research into the absorption, bioavailability and stuff with taking it with food, but I was like, well, it doesn't hurt to try to take it in a postprandial state as much as possible. So, and I'll take it, as late as I eat my last meal at midnight, so I take it at like 11:45 and somewhere around that time frame. And I think someone was asking, like, well, doesn't it keep you up? And it's like, no more than not taking it. So
I agree.
So yeah, 800 mics.
You're at 800. Okay. Yeah, I don't get any kind of sleep issues with it either, and I haven't noticed a difference. So I've experimented, like, I need to take it, and I just ate. Well, I'll take it and see if I haven't noticed a difference taking it, but I've kind of felt that way too. The first dose I take is fasted in the morning. Second dose may or may not be fasted. I'm on the fence as to which I would prefer, which I think is better, but I'm also, like you, leaning toward empty stomach, which my stomach's pretty empty.
I think it's kind of like one of those things where, like, and me and Skip have had this conversation before about BPC, like, just taking it and putting it, in your abdomen, or you put it right at the site of an injury, and my reasoning was always like, well, once you inject something, it becomes systemic within 5 to 10 minutes anyway. But the the superstitious bodybuilder me is like, I'll probably put it in my elbow if I got tendonitis, you know what I mean? Right. Just maybe the bodybuilding gods, bodybuilding gods will give me a little bit more results out of it if I do that.
Yeah, it's one thing to be confident in what you know, but then you're like, what if I'm wrong?
Yeah, exactly.
So I am using MOT C as well now. Now, I had gotten a bunch of that, and I've seen it run maybe like 5 milligrams 3 times a week. I've seen it.
Okay.
I've seen that studied that way. I've also heard of people using it that way, but I'm finding 1 milligram a day is what I'm doing, and I don't take it every day. It definitely takes me up a notch further as far as that cognitive benefit. And I will use it as almost a pre-workout. Like I like to take sometimes. I'll use like a half a scoop of a caffeinated pre-workout before I train, and it gives me like a really nice punch. But if I've used MOT C, I'm like, no, I don't even want to take that right now. I'm completely fine.
You know, getting back to the dosing too, because there's a guy that goes to my gym who's super, super lean. He's a trainer at MI40, Nick Adigo, and he was telling me that he works with Alex Kakel, and he has him doing, I want to say it's 200 mics a day.
Of MOT C? SLU.
And then he does that 5 days a week, and then on 2 days a week he does the 5 amino, 2 amino 5MQ.
Yeah.
And then, and are you using methylene blue with it also?
No. So somebody asked about that. Somebody asked us about that. You tell us about your experience with it, and I'll tell you about mine.
Okay, so I use 15 milligrams of methylene blue a day, and I take that fasted right when I take the 200 mics or 300 mics of SLU. And I will say, like, there's definitely a cognitive benefit between the two of them. Like, something's happening there, you know, in terms of the mitochondrial efficiency that's happening. It's real, you know. And I take it every day. And the only reason why I bought up methylene blue was this kid was telling me that he only takes 1 drop, which is half a milligram of the methylene blue. So maybe the guy's a hyper responder, or maybe I'm just taking way too much of this stuff and I'm wasting it.
I've heard that 10-15 is a good place to be.
But then you look at the animal studies for, say, like the SLU, and like the rats were taking like the equivalent of like 100 times what we're taking in an injectable dose. It seems like. So maybe we're taking way too little, and we could be getting way more benefits. Maybe we'd be lean overnight if we.
Well, that's what the studies are showing with methylene blue too. They were talking dosages up to like 400, and I'm like, hey,
yeah,
I'm going to let everybody else do that before I do that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there is such a thing as if you get your mitochondria running so efficiently, I feel like you're going to run into major energy deficits, right? Because, you know, Krebs cycle is just going to be running out of control, and I feel like you're just going to be creating a lot of heat, and you're just going to be burning through your energy substrates like crazy, almost to the point where you're going to get lean too fast, and your body's going to start shutting down. I feel like I'm not going to get.
That's why I'm not adding anything. I'm not adding anything to the Reta. I'm listening. You guys notice I'm like, Skip ain't saying much. I'm letting you guys talk because I'm not going anywhere near, and I'm already taking enough drugs. Quite frankly, I don't know how else to say it. And everything is going so well that I'm not going to fix what isn't broke. I'm not saying you guys are doing that.
Yeah,
All I'm saying is that's where I stand right now. I couldn't ask for it to be any better. I was kind of laughing to myself. I'm like, cognitive ability. That doesn't make me huge or ripped. What the do I care about that? You know, it's not something that interests me. You know, if I took it, I'd probably be like, oh, there is clarity here. Like, oh, okay, I might be. But you know what? When I diet, I get pretty focused and become this overachiever. I mean, I'll be cleaning the house. My wife will be like, did you sleep with somebody? Like, what is going on here? I become a different person, far more efficient. When I would get so much work done if I just dieted like in a deficit for 52 weeks out of the year. I would be an incredibly efficient person.
There was one thing I forgot to add when we were talking about MOT C. So like I said, 1 milligram a day. Somebody in the comments, and I read this somewhere, that it will break down after it's mixed. And somebody in the comments on my live stream said it's only like 40% as potent after 10 minutes. So I have a 10 milligram vials, and I'm taking the 1 milligram a day, but I'm not taking it every day. And I definitely notice the difference still on the days I'm taking it. So I call bunk on that. I don't think that that's true. I want to throw that in there. And I got to tell you, methylene blue, it's not for me, man. I tried it. I tried it twice, and meaning I ran it for about a 2-week period of time. Started at 5 milligrams, worked up to 10, and then I stopped it. And then when I started again, I started at 5 and stayed at 5. I think that I get like a serotonin syndrome from it, where serotonin gets too high. I literally would find myself stopping working, and I was just dazing out. And I was like, wait a minute. And I felt like just, good.
Well, do you take
there
any,
like that.
anything
sitting there.
related to, do you take
What's
any
up?
serotonin or dopamine related compounds right now?
No, but I think it's just the way my body works because I've had issues with things that like antidepressants don't go well in my body. I get
'cause that is
my
a
serotonin gets
contraindication.
my serotonin gets too high with those things. But no, I'm not.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right. Yeah, good stuff though. I'm really glad to hear that you're having good experience with that. And you, Skip, with the Retta. I'm on Retta too. I'm up to 2 milligrams per week now, and I'm not noticing any difference in my appetite. That was one of the big things before I had any clients use it. I've had, I'm sure all three of us have had a lot of experience with semaglutide, and there's a real fine line when it can just destroy somebody's appetite and just shut it off. Yep. Whereas there's, I think, a lot more leeway with Retatrutide. I'm not seeing, if I was, I wish I was, because I'm pretty freaking hungry right now. But there's not a cutoff at that dosing, at least.
Yeah, I don't think the comparisons between the two, I think they're pretty vast. There's a lot of difference between Retta and semaglutide. Huge.
Yeah. All right. Let me see what else do we have here. There was a bunch more stuff. Oh, we did have a bunch of stuff in the live stream. Let's knock those out for the rest of this episode.
I was going to say I just copied and pasted those if we could get to next time if we didn't get to them today. So
okay. Cool. What about this one? Does it matter if GH is injected, sub-Q, or IM? From Ghostman.
I know people are going to argue back and forth, but in my opinion, no. Like, here's what I do. If I'm wearing a tank top, I'll go like that into my chest. If I'm not, I'll pull my shirt up and I'll put it in my abs. Like, or if I'll put it in my shoulder sometimes. Like,
that's straight fiction shit right there, just right in my chest.
Dude, actually, I got a quick story for you. We were going to the beach like 10 years ago, and we were bringing this crazy girl with us that I used to coach, and she like hops in the car in the back seat, and I was wearing a tank top, and she's like, Melanotan time, and just jams a needle into my shoulder, and I'm like, oh, are you kidding me right now? Like,
oh man.
If you're going to inject me, you need to ask first. Like,
yeah,
exactly. Buy me dinner first.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just like, this girl's nuts. Like, what if that was like poison or something? Or like that case where like you were on Crime TV, Skip, where she injected me with like 3 cc's of insulin and was trying to put me out. And she was a little loony where she was the type that would definitely do this. So we're no longer friends anymore.
But you got tan.
Why aren't we friends anymore, Andrew? You climbed over the seat and injected me while I was riding shotgun on the way to the beach. That's exactly why.
Right?
Can't do that. Can't have friends like that.
Yeah. Skip, any thoughts on that? Anything you wanted to add with the GH?
Yeah, I actually agree with Andrew. I think that if it works for you, it's going to work sub-Q or intramuscular. The argument with intramuscular is just that it peaks higher and doesn't hold as long. So does that really matter when push comes to shove? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. I think it's just something that, you know what we do? We tend to, well, I'll tell you what I do. Maybe you guys will agree or disagree. If I start doing something a certain way and it works, that's just how I do it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to mess around and fix. I'm like, okay, this is working great. I'm not going to get greedy and go, man, if I tried it at this. Here's an example of GH that we were talking about 3 or 4 episodes ago, maybe weeks ago, something like that, where we were talking about the bedtime dosing. I just increased from 8 to 12 IU, and I only have 0.5 syringes, so I go 444. Yeah. And one of those is pre-bedtime. And as soon as I started doing that for the last 4 days, my REM and deep sleep literally has been cut in half. And my sleep score is going, basically, I'm paraphrasing, your sleep sucks. When it was great prior to that. So now I'm like, oh, man, I'm going to cut back to 2 instead of 3, and I'm going to keep it away from taking it before I go to bed. I'm just not going to do it. So I'm going to do it when I wake, like I always do, and I'm going to do it pre or post workout, probably post workout again. Yeah. And I'm going to leave it away from my bedtime. I'm just not going to do that. And that, my point in saying that is that was the example that I used when we were talking about, or I said that I don't like it pre-bedtime. Other people say they do like it. Everyone is going to have a slightly different response to these types of things. And if you're aware of your response and it works for you, then keep doing it. If you're taking it sub-Q, just do it. If you're taking
let me ask you though, what if a research study says that's done on a non-bodybuilding population tells you that what you're doing is wrong?
Right, exactly. I see where you're going with that. Very
Good
snarky
point.
of you. I like that. Yeah, you know the answer. The answer is,
Yeah,
you know what?
I know.
I'm going with what I see, and this is
Exactly.
how I respond. And I don't really care what a bunch of midget dwarf kids need to take GH. I don't even know what the politically correct term is, but little midget kids, because it's just not the
I
same.
think we have to edit that out.
I don't think we do. I think it's pretty funny.
I think I do for the channel. You put it on the skip channel.
Good point. Good point.
Okay, now let's really rapid fire these this time. Best way to minimize elbow swelling or pointy bodybuilding elbows.
Don't bodybuild. I mean,
Yeah,
He's saying, I think, in reference to growth.
growth is what I was thinking too. Yeah.
I mean, give your growth to me, Skip, or Scott. I mean,
Yeah.
Look, there's things that come with this sport, and in that case, that in this person's case, that's one of them. If you're going to use growth hormone, I don't think there's like, if you take it at this time, or if you,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess
Take
you could
less.
lower the dose. You could take less, but like, there's no fun in that. I mean, why? Just give it to us then.
Who wants to take less? That's like quitting.
Exactly.
Don't
No
be
one
a
likes a quitter. No one likes
Yeah.
a quitter. But yeah, I mean, that's become a thing again. I saw another podcast or another something on YouTube where pointy elbows were coming back, like everyone talking about it again. Did you guys notice that?
No. I'm going to go on. I'm going to say something that maybe you guys would disagree with, but I'm going to be honest. I thought that was literally a back in the day real GH from a cadaver. I haven't even seen.
I was waiting to tell a story about those days because I know somebody.
Okay, but I haven't seen any pointy bone issue. I see this noses, ears. And you know what? When I go and the awesome Vietnamese lady does my nails every 2 weeks like clockwork, Manny and Petty, and I go, I have to clip my nails now. What's that?
No.
There we go. You caught yourself.
Are you coming out right now?
I've already been out. You know that. I've already been. But my nails they grow twice as fast. I go, and my wife always sits next to me getting her nails done. I'm like, she's like, oh, nails long. I'm like, I know they just started growing all of a sudden. I look over at my wife and she's just rolling her eyes. And I want to say, because I'm taking a lot of growth hormone, but that's one of those signs of, whether it's cartilage. Not all cartilage, just, the kind that you don't want to grow, quite frankly, and nails and hair. And it's a real good sign. So you go, my growth is really good.
Oh, yeah. So he wouldn't mind me saying this because we were going to talk about it on a podcast. And he was like, yeah, go ahead and say it. Rest in peace, Dave Kalick. He used the cadaver growth. And so he told me, he was like, it was different. He's like, what you do is you would take it for, I can't remember how many weeks he said, but you take it for so many weeks and you wouldn't see any effects from it, but then you would after that. And he was like, yeah, after you stopped. He was like, then the next month. So you'd take it for like 3 weeks and nothing would happen. And then 3 weeks after that, he was like, that's when you would see the effect. I was like, holy shit, that's wild.
I might call Fulcor on that one.
Well, I don't know.
I love Dave and I respect him, but I'm just trying to why would it
there's some stuff I could tell you that I won't say on the show.
Okay. Right.
But he said that it worked after you took it, and that's where you would see the bone growth too. So after you're already off of it, he said that's when it would happen. And he said literally everything got thicker. Every one of his joints got thicker. His elbows got pointier. His nose got pointier.
It's some big wrists, like thick. I always looked at his forearms and his wrists, and I'd be like, that guy's got some wrists, man.
Imagine getting hit by that guy.
He was like a freaking rhino, He was like a rhino. Yeah. He really was.
Dude, the first time I met him, he just turned around and hugged me because his guy had just won. Dorian had just won his pro card, the super heavyweight class at nationals in 2016, and he just wanted to hug the first person that he saw. And I happened to be that guy who was standing there, and I'm like, oh shit, that's Dave Kalick. I've read about him.
One of the nicest guys, man.
He turns around and just grabs me and hugs me and almost picks me up, and I'm like, "Hey, Dave Kalick, I'm Andrew Barry. Nice to meet you." And he's just like, "Oh man, I'm so happy right now. Sorry I did that. Nice to meet you too." And then we became friends after that. So,
and he loved everybody.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, he's just
He
so
loved
so
everybody. He was
easy
like,
to get
"Oh
along
yeah."
with.
If you were to tell him like Andrew Barry, he was like, "Oh yeah, I love Andrew," you know,
Yeah,
and it
he's
just
such a
he
good
was
guy.
like that. He loved bodybuilding. You know what I learned from him? Because we the only way we can keep those people alive is in our hearts and in how we behave. Dave freaking loved his clients. Like he put so much like into the people he worked with, and I realized that the way I can keep Dave alive is by treating people the way Dave would treat people. You know what I mean?
I
Treat
like
my
that.
clients
Yeah, I
the
like
way
that.
he would, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
Fucking
I said
cool,
God
dude.
has a sixth sense of humor because the good ones tend to go first, and that's probably why I'm going to benefit from that, and I'm going to end up living to be like 120. but at like 80, I'm going to be in a nursing home drooling on myself, and just wishing I was dead, probably.
Yeah. All right. How about this one? Question on growth after a cycle. Why is it that when we finish the cycle and we go back to TRT, growth starts to kick in again? Oh, I see. So growth is in muscle growth. Okay.
Less toxicity. Like usually the person starts sleeping a little bit better. Like if you've been on drugs for 20, 22 weeks and they're kind of, they tell you like, man, I think I'm good. I'm done. I'm ready for this one to be over, and maybe you pulled back the food a little bit. So they're a little bit more mobile. The digestion's a little bit better. I just think it comes down to lack of toxicity because me and a client were just talking about this the other day. He's like, man, I feel like I'm growing as well as I was, 10 weeks ago. And then I had like a lull where I wasn't growing, but now I feel like I'm growing again. I'm like, yeah, like ride the wave for a little while. And then we're going to have to pull you back a little bit because that's typically when I'll pull volume down a little bit or I'll pull training frequency back just because you're not getting as much of the muscle protein synthesis from the PEDs. But there is like that good 2, 3, sometimes 4 week window where the gains are as good as they were early on in the cycle.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I was going to go with inflammation, but I think I like the term toxicity better because I think that hits the nail on the head right there. There just comes a time where your body's like, you know what, you're on too much shit for too long.
Tommy John, I want pointy elbows.
Yeah, he does.
All right. Well, listen, let's wrap this thing up, guys. We didn't even tell people that they should leave questions for the next show, by the way. So that's it for questions for the day, guys. If you do have questions, we are going to record another episode. Spoiler alert for everybody who's watching this on YouTube now. We record 2 shows back to back. But so feel free in the live stream to keep commenting. Before we went, though, we had 2 orders of business. Skip, you launched your new podcast with Dr. Marv, Between Two Dumbbells. You've been wanting to use that name for years now, haven't you?
Years. I was glad he was on board with it, too. First episode kind of dropped yesterday. Every Tuesday we'll have a new episode. We have, 3 in the bank. We record on Mondays. We wanted to get ahead so that we didn't have any gaps. And I didn't want to have to say, I got to take a break, because this was supposed to start 8 months ago, and a lot of things happened that I didn't get into that I'm not going to get into now. But I just got sidetracked, and I'm just glad to see it come to fruition. He's as excited as I am.
He's cool.
He is. He's very cool, and I like I like what we're doing. So. We're kind of approaching this as we're having fun and we are happy with the project. This is exactly what we want to do with the training and be nuanced about it and stuff. And I say I bring the experience to the table. He brings the brains, and we kind of battle it out, kind of a smash or pass. If we evaluate an exercise, a specific exercise, and break it down, or even like a training methodology, we're going to talk about BFR and things like that. That'll be the 3rd episode. So the next episode that comes out we're talking about the dumbbell pullover, things like that. And we dig into these, pretty deep. I had to laugh. I thought I would just wing an intro and a closing. That's not how this works. So I actually had to put some time into it and went, oh, that wasn't very comfortable. I actually have to rehearse this and get it consistent, get it right. So we're tweaking it. We're working out the kinks, but we're pretty excited about it. So if you could check that out, anybody who's listening, you check it out. You know what? You don't like it, don't subscrib, don't share.
How do they find it?
It's on my Team Skip YouTube channel. And of course I'll post that on, social media every time, when it drops on Tuesdays on my Facebook and Instagram. But yeah, Team Skip YouTube channel every Tuesday. I'll have content in between then, too. I'm going to talk about who I'm working with and why for my competitive season this year, which will happen. And things like that. My Retatrutide, just a lot of different things in there to kind of as filler and good information in between. But count on those shows every Tuesday.
What about a word of the day?
ameliorate this podcast between two dumbbells. I'm doing that to ameliorate my exposure and my business to stay relative.
Does that mean separate yourself from Andrew and I? You're trying to. It doesn't mean like the same thing as distance yourself from somebody.
No, I'm trying to stay important and significant in an industry that I've been in for, I don't know, so many years I can't count. And as I get older, I need to stay relevant. I think I said relative. Relevant. I'm giving out words of the day, but I can't seem to get my words right. You might want to take that advice from somebody else. But anyway, relevancy. You guys know that over time. I mean, I've been in the industry, been prepping people for over 20 years, online trainer, and I'm still with Elite FTS and everything else. I'm doing everything I can, but I think I still have a lot of wisdom, a lot of experience, and I want to be able to continue to provide a benefit to the industry, and people give out information that people find value in.
Hell yeah. Guys, if you want to reach out to any of us for coaching, go to bodyberry.com. You can go to teamskip.com. You can hit me up, mcnallydiets@gmail.com. Thank you guys very much for your support over at Patreon. We're going to be opening up the new site soon. Thank you to truenutrition.com. Use our code THINK over there to get some Team Skip protein, plus all your carb powders, intra-workouts, pre-workouts, everything else you need. Citrulline, malate in bulk form. That's what I use pre-workout. And, of course, supplementsource.ca for Canadians, guys. They do have great deals that change week to week. And for another episode of BSG, Blood, Sweat, and Gear, we'll see you soon.